All right, welcome to Bee Talks. So glad to have you here, and we are honored to have our Vice President, Jose Salinas. He's here, and also, who else? Is anybody else from the board here?
I'm here.
Paul is here.
Oh, Paul's there. There he is. He's hiding down there. Hey, Paul.
How you doing?
And so let's start with announcing a couple events that are coming up. We're going to go, our next event is in the bee yard, and we have hit it at exactly the right time, because we're going to be in beautiful weather, cool morning on that's this Saturday morning at the Boulder Knoll Bee Farm. And we're going to discuss winter preparation. We're going to emphasize mites and mite treatment at this time of year. So we're going to do 2 or 3 mite rolls. So by the time we get finished on Saturday, you'll be versed and conversant in how to do a roll. We'll teach you how to count, do the percentages, and also explain a number of treatment options you have this time of year. Actually, there's 3, but we'll talk about those Saturdays. So I encourage anyone who has any interest in learning how to prep your colonies. We'll do some evaluation too, and see if what colonies we think will make it through, and what kind of stores they have, and so on and so forth. So should be a pretty interesting event. So I encourage you to go there. It starts at 9 o'clock, and you have to register for it, but you can just you guys can just show up. So it's good. All right. What else do we have going on outside of the bee yard this Saturday? Of course, we got a great lineup of speakers. We're starting to build our speaker program for 2023. We still have speakers all the way out until the end of December. We have Christina Grossinger coming for December. She's always a great speaker. She's the head of the lab in Penn State at this point, I believe. Yeah, she's a PI in that lab. She's a great speaker, and we'll nail her on what folks are doing in the laboratories to make our beekeeping easier for us. Because actually, I'll take this time to get on my own bandwagon and complain a little bit about how we are dragging our feet on some of the more benign but effective mite treatments that are currently not available in the United States, but should be, because they have gone through extensive testing in our labs. And as I say, they're just not available, but they should be, so maybe we can talk more about that. All right, so before I proceed to the bloom calendar, is there anything else you want to announce, Paul or JS?
Today, Tennessee's new ban on sleeping outside when in.
Okay, we're going to have
Well,
to.
we like you said, we've got events lined up for quite a few months ahead. We've got Dr. Jay Evans on September 15th. In October, we've got Aaron Anderson talking about beneficial bee habitats and reducing pesticide risks.
There you go.
And in November, we have Dr. Kimberly Stoner talking about native pollinators. So we urge all of you to sign up for those and attend. Of course, we invite everybody to the workshops that Bill was talking about. We've got that one on August 13th, this coming Saturday, and the winter prep workshop on September 10th. And it's a wonderful bee yard. It's terrific. And I would urge many people to come.
Yeah, it's a great bee yard. It's set up just for teaching, and it's working out really well. All right, thank you. That's probably what I was thinking. So let me share what's going on with forage right now. Somebody, I'm going to have to ask them to mute. I don't know who it is, but If there's some noise in your background, please mute. You can stay muted if you want until you want to ask a question or something, then you can unmute. It's probably better if you do that. Let me share my bloom calendar for August. And so hopefully you can see that screen.
We can.
Yeah, okay, so Calethra is out, and it has been for, so this is the 2021 calendar day. I haven't been able to update for 22 yet. I will. I have most of the data on photographs. So what I do is I'll take a photograph of a plant when I see it and in bloom, and then I'll go back later on. And of course, the photograph is stamped for the date, and I can go ahead and add it in. But right now we're looking at 2021 data. Calethra was a little bit behind this year, not much, but just a few days. I didn't see it out. Of course, that's my area now. Your area might have been completely out at the second. The only tree I ever recommend that you plant in your yard is the Korean BB tree. And if you can get your hands on one of them, they grow sort of like weeds. Mine is maybe 20 feet tall at this point, and it is just a haven for foragers, especially this time of year when things can be a little bit slim for bee pickings, and it just
Bill,
provides a whole lot. Yes.
about the Korean BB tree, when I remember you mentioned this last year, and I went on a hunt and I found them at Logee's, Logee.
Yep.
And I paid for the shipping, and I got to, they did great over winter, and then I killed one by over fertilizing. So I just,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and I was so mad at myself. I just bought the replacement actually just like an hour ago. But anyway, if people are looking for them, Logee in, I don't know, it's like in the quiet corner.
Yeah, it's up there in the quiet corner.
Yeah, but they'll ship. I bought it a 6-inch and it's already quite big. So just FYI.
Yeah, they grow very easily. I protected mine from deer while it was a little small. I put just a little fence around it, so deer didn't eat it. But they claim that deer go right by it, but I just didn't trust it in my area because deers in my area eat nails. I mean, they'll eat anything, So, but that tree will produce flowers by year 4, and you'll be so happy you planted that tree. Because it's just so much fun it's totally benign in your environment. It's not an invasive, and it provides lots of food. Winged sumac is out. It's beautiful to see winged sumac blooming. It's right on time this year. I saw it around the 3rd. I don't see jewelweed, which is usually really in the first week of August, but I haven't seen it yet. Maybe some of you have. Have any of you seen jewelweed out yet? Mine has not taken off yet. So it's a great little, you'll notice it when you see your bees coming back on landing board. They'll have a little racing stripe down their back because the anther on jewelweed hangs down in the middle of this, like a little orchid bloom. And for bees to get at the nectary, they have to crawl inside a little tube. And just picture an orchid with a little anther sticking down in the top middle of it. So it just lays pollen right down their back. And they can't brush it off. It's in a place where they're not good at taking it off. But usually for jewelweed, they're going after nectar. So not pollen. So you'll see them coming back into the colony with a little racing stripe down their back. They're on jewelweed. Same thing happens in the beginning of the year when they're on skunk cabbage. Same sort of phenomena happens. So arrow leaf tear thumb is something you will never see, I don't think, unless you're very observant and go on trails and look for it. It is in the buckwheat family. It's a native, and it blooms beautifully right around this time, and bees forage on it quite readily. But it's something, these are little sustainer blooms. They're minor, but they're available to your bees, and your bees usually work them. burdock is out, and I think has anybody seen thistle? Yeah, Mike, have you seen thistle?
Possibly, but burdock is just beginning to bloom.
Okay, yeah. All right. So
And the
that,
roses Sharon seem to be hanging around for months.
yeah, I don't, so I'm gonna add Rose of Sharon on this little thing once I get on there. I mean,
We take
because there's so much of it around. And it starts earlier than this, right? It starts way in, well, I don't know. I don't really know when I first see Rose of Sharon. I'm gonna put it in August, and then I'll check out the date and I'll move it around if I need to. But for right now, I'm gonna hold the spot for it in August. Clematis is out, and this is the wild version of it. And it's it grows like a vine. You'll not notice it as the kind of decorative hybrid.
Wait.
Hello. Right. So
Hey, hi. We're
okay. All right. So you got to put your
we're
phone-
friendly, buddy. Wait.
I think I did it. I think I got it. It's not something that you'll notice unless you walk near trails that have a little bit of lowlands, usually water or swamp or something near them. But man, the bees work this. They go nuts for it, and you can probably grow it in your yard if you wanted to. Again, it's a native. It's not something that we're too concerned with. Now, the next one is the villain of bee food, the Japanese knotweed. Michael Lund sees that really early. He has a variety somewhere that blooms way up in what, June or July or something, right, Michael?
I think it was the last day of June, I think it started blooming.
Yeah, that's a really different phenology than most of the knotweed that we'll see around our area. The knotweed we see more commonly blooms in right around now it starts, and I see it setting blooms all over the place. So I think it's going to be a good year for knotweed. I also think it's going to be a good year for goldenrod. Goldenrod and field variety of it has been out for a while now, and folks have been commenting that they've seen their bees actually work goldenrod on the field variety of goldenrod, the dry peat, the dry one that first comes out earlier than now. But the goldenrod is starting to show yellow in the fields. The real, nectar producers for us, the flat tops and the other 5 or 6 varieties that show up. And then I learned up in Ithaca, I always call Solidago rugoso the wrinkle leaf yoga. They call it the furry stemmed goldenrod. But so that's the one we wait for. So I've seen it in the field earlier, and as I say, now it's starting to mature, and that'll be a good flow. It looks like a good flow. Now we got 2 inches of rain in Cheshire on Monday and Tuesday. We got an inch and a half on Monday, and then a half inch on Tuesday. So it looks like to me, I'm hoping that's going to be enough rain to put a bloom on goldenrod. I have no idea what happens to goldenrod, how it blooms, why some years when it rains beautifully, it doesn't seem to produce nectar as much as it does other years. It's a mystery to me. I always thought it was a real reliable flow, but now, of course, I don't think that way anymore after observing it for 10 years. It seems like it's a little more tricky than most years. Now, mugwort is not out yet in my area. It will be, and then when mugwort comes out, bees will work that bloom for pollen before goldenrod starts to produce nectar. So and that's what can happen. You can get goldenrod out first. I'm trying to find that person. All right, so we're
I muted them.
Okay, thank you. Could you do that, please? Because
Yeah.
I gotta go between screens to find them. I don't know I don't know how I managed to put the Zoom thing on another screen. I'll get it back. So what'll happen is bees will go out early on mugwort, pick up pollen. It's a sort of a light a yellowish green, and it's shiny because they have to expel nectar on it to get it to stick to their corbicula, and then they'll go back and bring that mugwort pollen back to the colony, and then they'll go back out on goldenrod as soon as the sun is up high enough to get warm enough for the nectar to start flowing in goldenrod. And then they switch over, and then in the afternoon they're nowhere near mugwort. Ragweed is coming on pretty strong. Ragweed I don't talk about a lot. It is actually the allergen that most people think goldenrod is, but mugwort is the real offender because it's got friable pollen and other parts. And when when ragweed is out, you can smell it in the air. It's just like pervasive, and it provokes people's allergies. Whereas goldenrod, the pollen is so thick and heavy that it falls from the plant down to the ground. It's not airborne, of course, unless we had some kind of a tropical storm or something. Anything else we should add to this bloom calendar? Anybody got any ideas what we should add? Is there anything in there that I missed? Ann, what do you got? Go ahead, Ann. Unmute yourself.
My hydrangea is covered with my bees.
Okay, your hydrangea is a kind of a special kind, right?
It's a lace
Lace
hydrangea.
LACE.
Yes.
Okay.
And loosestrife.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about purple loosestrife. That's good. Thank you for mentioning that. All right. So purple loosestrife is coming back big time. And I guess what happens, I'll repeat the story about purple loosestrife. It's incredible. People that don't know and have never seen it say it's an incredible invasive. And I'm sure there's some gardeners in our session that know more about this than I do. But I hear that it was it did some damage. I don't know how it can do more damage than say Phragmites does, but it's been partially eradicated by a biological pest that we imported. That biological pest is some kind of a beetle that actually does nothing but eat purple loosestrife. And so it'll devour it. And I guess it keeps it in check. But gotta imagine that if it does a really good job at eating its host and killing it, then its population suffers. So it's this kind of sine wave of repopulation. And I saw more purple loosestrife this year in my travels than I've ever seen. And I don't know, I guess the biological will come on strong as a result. And then you won't see, purple loosestrife again. But I'm kind of rooting for some of it to come back because it's just such an extraordinary pollen producing plant, nectar producing plant. And the same thing, I am seeing some sweet clover here and there, but not a big deal. And of course, I skipped over dogbane on that line up there, but dogbane has been out since whenever it bloomed, and it still works. It's still blooming now in August, and it'll bloom right until frost in my area. So it's an incredible filler plant. Very cool.
Bill, how do you feel about Queen Anne's lace? I
don't know about Queen Anne's lace, except that I do see bees skirt across the top of it. All right, so there's a really interesting behavior. I'm not sure I can't imagine they get anything from it. but they must get something because bees will just run over the top of it at 100 miles an hour. They don't land. They just go right over the top of it. And other bees will spend a little bit more time with the honeybees, just do that little dance over it. And they might, they don't have behaviors for no reason. So, and if it wasn't a plant that produced anything, you wouldn't be able to, they would have evolved away from it at this point, but they haven't. So,
Bill, I see my bees on the Queen Anne's lace and it looks like they're working it.
what are they doing?
They're, sticking their tongues in, moving over, sticking their tongues in.
Yeah, well, you're lucky. Because I don't, I don't see them do that much. I wish they did, but I don't
The
see
only
'em-
thing I've really seen them that I thought they were working near me is the Queen Anne's lace and the goldenrod right now.
Yeah, well, so, if they're doing something, take a video of it and let me see it, because I want to see what.
I
you
don't take my camera when I'm walking.
Take your camera when you're walking.
I'm not taking my camera when I'm walking.
Oh,
Next, I'll
okay.
be packing a backpack and water.
Okay, what's the matter with that?
I don't want anything in my hands. I just want to walk and get home.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so I'll look, you guys all look and see if you can, just plenty of Queen Anne's lace around. And, we can figure that one out. Now, I had something else in mind when, so certain varieties of marigold are very attractive to honeybees. Now, we planted, Elizabeth planted a whole lot of it in our yard. And this is not a sustaining plant. It's nothing. It's just a minor little thing that I observed I thought was interesting. And the interesting part about it is that they stay still in the exact center of the marigold. And they don't move. It's as if they've gotten like stuck there. And they just... You got him? Wow.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. Yeah, they stay right in the center of it. And I don't know, maybe they're getting high off of it or so. I don't really know, because they just seem to want to stay on it. And they leave. They don't have any pollen. They have to have nectar. That's what they're getting out of it. But I can't understand why it's just the center of the plant, unless they're finding moisture down there. And they could be finding water, I guess. All right, anything else?
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
the mimosa's been going for a long time also. I just looked outside, my Rose of Sharon finally stopped.
It has, okay.
And Stop and Shop loves to plant pagoda trees around their building.
And both of
So this-
those are both of those are tree nectars, right? Or are they pollen?
I'm gonna say nectar, because I don't think I've seen them take pollen off of them.
So those are, I'm gonna look those up, Michael, and because they have a really interesting bloom pattern. They're very prolific, right? The blooms are all over the place. on
Yeah.
these.
Down south, mimosas are destroying entire neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not good news, but yeah, so no, I get it. But those are, so tree nectars are a good balance this time of year for your colony, if you can get them, because tree nectars are usually a little higher in fructose. And we could get into a situation later on where we're picking up some aster nectar in our colonies, and if you have a fructose source in there, it can delay the crystallization, or it can get plugged out with crystallized honey if you have a lot of asters going in. Asters bloom at the end of this sort of like knotweed and goldenrod bloom. All right. Cool. All right, I'm going to stop this share. Let's add these folks. I'll find you guys wherever you are. All right. Okay, good. You came back. All right. Okay, so we have a couple of questions that were emailed in, which is always kind of nice. And there are 13 questions in the chat. Maybe I could ask you, Jose, to go over that once I go over. Let's see who. I think that was, I can't remember which mailbox. Oh, Jane, are you here? Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, Jane, are you here? Bogini, did you come on? I don't think you did. All right, so she asked some questions I think are worth it for us to actually go over. So let's see. Let me get her questions. Maybe some folks registered early for Bee Talks, and the registration link at that point was defective, but had been fixed since. So if you registered early for Bee Talks, you might have got a bad link. And I think she might have gotten that because I know she was wanting to come on. So if you have a question for Bee Talks meeting, what do you do with frames after you've extracted honey? All right, so we're gonna open this up too for other people to comment on. What I do is, because I'm trying to produce honey and I want to keep my frames nice and clean, what I do is I try to get the bees to clean them. And so I'll have, once I extract my honey from my frames, they're what we refer to then as stickies, because they have some honey left in them. You can't spin out 100% of the honey. And there's some left in there. They look wet and they are sticky. And so I bring those back out to the colonies and I put them on top of my inner cover and let bees go up there. And you have to kind of time this right. But sometime in July was when I was doing this. So I'm not doing it now. If you're doing it now, you might get it done sooner. But in July, my bees had access to a flow somewhere, who knows where. And when I put them on, they started to fill them again. So that was a little bit of a problem for me. But normally they will get up there and they'll clean any loose honey up out of those cells. They clean them up beautifully. And then I just take them and store them after that. And they put them back on the hive. So that answers my question. She asked, do you put them back on the hive? In my case, yes. Can you put them on top of a weaker hive? You can put them anywhere you want, weak hive, strong hive, anywhere you want, but a weaker hive is probably not going to clean them as fast as a strong hive. My objective is to get that super clean so I can put it away for storage. What do you do with the cappings in preparation for melting? Okay, so, well, you're going to hear a lot of beekeepers say that they take their cappings out and they lay them on a tarp out near their bee yard, and the bees come and clean them all up and they're perfect. I kind of discourage that because not only will bees be on that, there will be every other kind of insect that is around on them. And there's a little bit of fighting that goes on, or some robbing that goes on. So that's the way you'll hear people talk about cleaning cappings. I wash them in water. So I have a 5-gallon bucket, and my 5-gallon bucket, I drilled a 6-inch hole in the top of its lid. I have a regular rubber sealed lid. So it's a food grade honey bucket. On top of that lid, I cover that hole with a number 8 hardware cloth, which has 8 little squares per inch. So I have a nice little mesh over the top of that. I'll put my cappings in groups, of a couple of pounds a piece, and then I put hot water in that bucket and stir them around and turn that bucket upside down and let it drain over a drain. And I do it 2 or 3 times until most of the honey is out of that bucket. And actually almost all of it's out of that bucket. Then I use a solar melter to melt the cappings. But while I'm doing that, I'm stirring that bucket with my hand when I first put the cappings in, and I have a lot of hot water in there, and I can see the brown stuff. So when you're using a hot knife to take your cappings off of your supers, you'll get some old wax in there now and then, some stuff that's been laying around, it's on the bottom bar, or it's somewhere else, and it's brown, dark brown. I pick them out because I want my capping wax to be pure, and I can get the best result when I take them all out. I don't get any discoloration. I get nice, clear, beautiful, yellow, rich yellow wax out of it when I do it that way. All right, so I rinse mine. Long story short, I rinse the honey out of them, but I wanted to explain how I did it with that bucket so that if you were inventive, you could make one yourself. All right, so let me hear from some other folks, because I know there are other people that do it differently. So Ralph, you tell people how you do. Are you there, Ralph, still? Did you leave? Ralph Zur? I thought he was here. Okay, any other suggestions? What you do with your capping wax? Or I guess Ralph did leave, huh?
I just chew mine like gum. I love it. That's what I do with it. Thank you.
You chew it? Oh, and then you spit it out and melt it?
I don't worry. Sometimes I spit it out. Sometimes I swallow it. I'll swallow gum too.
Okay, all right. No, we're talking about like really large quantities of capping wax. I like that though. I mean, it's good for you, I guess. It's a carbohydrate you can't digest, so it won't make you gain weight. I won't
Oh,
try. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
So it's my first year with the bees, and I started with a nuke, and now I have 2 supers and a regular size. So how do I know when and how to take the honey? If this first year you're not supposed to take honey, or there's a lot of honey?
So you started with medium boxes?
I started with one nuke, and now I have two with supers and a regular 8 frame.
You have to explain the configuration again. Are they in deeps?
Hold on. Hold on.
Okay. All right. Okay, we can see them. I think you lost you probably lost bandwidth out there. Yeah, it's not going to work, Melissa.
You can't see my bees?
Yeah, we can
Oh,
see a
crap.
little bit. It's kind of broken up because you're losing bandwidth, but I get it, so you grew the nukes into deeps, it looks like.
Yeah, I think I had to, because they were bearding and they seemed crowded.
So do you have where is the honey? In honey supers or in the deep?
No, I didn't put a divider in there. It's all just one big happy family.
But how happy is it? I mean, where's the honey?
Top and bottom. Last time I looked.
All right. Yeah, so if you have honey in honey supers, you can harvest it.
I thought so just because it's the first year, I don't have to like keep it there extra or anything.
Well, it depends on how much you have. I mean, if you have a full deep of honey and then you have honey above that, in supers, you can probably harvest some of that.
So take it from the supers, or it
yes.
doesn't matter. Take it from the supers.
But you don't want to extract honey from a brood box. All right, so that's out. That you can use as a prescription. Don't take honey from your brood box.
But
And
are
what is that?
the bees laying in the super? Because it doesn't sound like there's a queen excluder.
Well, Yeah.
Two
I
deeps
didn't
or
put it,
one?
I didn't put an excluder. I didn't put an excluder because I wasn't trying to just get honey. I was just trying to make happy bees.
All right, so if you want them real happy, just leave them the way they are. And then they'll be happy and you'll be happy because you'll solve your problem.
Well, no, is that what I should do? I mean, I'm not, I do want a little bit of honey,
So no,
but
you
I
got,
mean,
so honey, beekeeping is sort of observational. And not really getting, I'm not getting enough information on what you're saying.
Hey,
to
Bill,
really-
Why?
let me
really
help with that. So if you have 2 deeps, which would be 20 frames,
Yep.
if you have more than 20 frames of brood or I say brood in honey, anything beyond the 20 frames should definitely be extra honey.
Well, that might not be the case, though. I mean, we don't know where the queen's laying in these colonies.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can see whether it's honey or brood, and if you have a frame that's just totally honey, yeah, go ahead and take it if it's beyond the 20 frames of food and brood.
Well-
That should be plenty for a beginning beekeeper to go into winter with.
Maybe, depends on, so we don't really know how much that top box weighs or how much honey is actually in the 2 deeps. I understand what you're saying. And most of the beekeepers here would also understand, but she's brand new.
But are you clear that there are 2 deeps? Melissa, it's not clear whether there are 2 deeps or a deep
Yeah.
and 2 supers.
Right.
It's the bottom. This one has a bottom and a short super. And this is an 8 frame double high, same. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And then this was just my swarm. I had a swarm and they had to go in here.
Yeah. I still really wouldn't be able to tell you from that, whether or not you should take honey out of there. You'd have to know, how much honey, Kurt is giving you some guidelines about how you should manage those colonies. And he's basically saying that if there's enough resources, but you might not be able to determine this because you're a new beekeeper.
I am. I'm very new.
Yeah, what he's saying is that as long as you are confident that your brood box area has sufficient stores in it, and then you can take excess honey even in year 1. That is
Okay.
possible, but I wouldn't be able to tell you from you. You'd have to actually go through and inspect it and tell us what you're seeing.
Well, like what percent? I guess you can't tell me what percentage to leave either. I guess either.
No,
No.
yeah, no, I because for me to tell you what percentage you can leave, I'd have to know how much you have in those boxes.
That's true. Okay.
Were you
Well, I
feeding
want-
it all when you had any of those boxes on? Were you feeding it all?
When they were brand new, I put sugar packs in and some other packs in, but then after things started blooming, I stopped feeding. They have water.
Yeah. So what Lauren is getting at is, did you feed any sugar water, before the flow started? Before the flow started, that's fine. After the flow started, you could get, you can get some kind of a mixture of sugar water and honey in your supers. That wouldn't be good.
Yeah,
But
no, I stopped.
probably-
I stopped
yeah.
after as soon as they started to be able to go do their own
Yeah.
thing. I stopped feeding them.
All right, so you have to try to do some research on your own and figure out in your situation how many, like the 1 8 frame, I guess that's 2 8 frame deeps on top of each other.
Yeah,
That I don't think you can harvest from. The other one,
that was my original. That was my that was the fullest hive.
yeah, but those two deeps, those 2 8 frame deeps are the brood box. Right, that's all so we make, we designate, we make it, distinction between where the brood is and where we're going to manage those colonies to make honey. And those are honey supers. So we do that intentionally. This was a good year to make honey because your bees would actually, fill the brood box up with as much honey as they needed down there and then proceed to go fill supers. And they did a good job of it this year. So that's what you haven't been able to sort of get from your, your observation of the colonies. Right, so you didn't distinguish between what was going to be brood boxes and what were going to be honey supers. And you could have probably this year because it was a good year for honey making.
That's,
Okay.
I guess I could have. I was just trying to make happy bees. I don't know. So,
All right.
all right. I'm gonna
Cool.
I'll take some honey, but just a little, I guess. I don't know.
Either do I. Can't help you. All right.
Hey,
Yeah.
Bill,
Yes.
another first timer, and trying to see if I can show some of the photographs. I do not know if this would work. Does that work? Or I have to, if I show it on the,
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see it, but it's too blurry to tell you. What's your question about that?
so basically we had two brood boxes, is it? Did I got the term
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, you got the.
And we've got a queen extruder between, and then the supers. Nothing.
Okay.
There's nothing there's some bees that are coming to the super, but there's nothing going on there in the honey super.
Okay.
The two boxes, the lower boxes, was stuck, and there seems to be something red in there, and it seems like suddenly there's a lot less bees to me. I don't know what happened.
So back up. So there's nothing in the super. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, this is our first year, and we weren't expecting anything.
Yeah, those were probably foundation. They didn't draw those out even, right? Or they just
No, yeah, there's nothing drawn out.
All right, so nothing got drawn out in those supers. And then you said something about red.
Yeah, it looked like some very red sticky substance that was holding the frames, as well as
that's propolis.
Sorry,
that's propolis. Yeah, that's what they do.
Ah, okay.
Right? They stick.
That's
it together.
good.
Yeah, it's glue. All right. You know,
Okay.
it makes beekeeping really hard to do sometimes. But yeah, so that's propolis. That's what you're. So take a little bit of that, scrape it off, and smell it.
Okay.
And so you'll get an idea how beautiful it is. It's a gorgeous.
Yes. I mean, and when I was trying to
Small.
separate the two boxes, I had to scrape some off, and it's really
Yeah.
delightful.
Yep. So there it is. That's propolis. So then you're saying you have a small population of bees.
Yeah.
Is there queen in there?
I believe so. I cannot.
It's a great thing to believe, but you gotta have some. You gotta have some proof that she's actually in her. Do you see?
So we asked our mentor, and the first time when we thought we had a swarm happening, he came and says that he showed us that the queen was still laying, and there was a lot of stuff there, but there were other peanuts there, and so there may be some superseding happening.
Well, swarming maybe. When was that?
That was about a month ago or so.
Yeah, right. So that colony probably swarmed.
But we didn't see anything anywhere. We thought it was swarming because they were buzzing all over, and then they just calmed down. And that's when we called him, and he came and saw. He says, "No, it's thriving." And then last week, when I went to see it again, I've been sort of looking at it every week.
Wait, so when he went through the colony with you, he saw swarm cells?
He saw superseder cells, but he saw that all the bees were still there. I mean, there was a lot of bees.
Well, so I don't know if he saw superseder cells or swarm cells. He probably saw swarm cells.
Where were the cells? Were they on the bottom of the frame or on the?
You can't always, yeah, you can't always tell from that, but yeah, but that was what I was going to ask. Where were those cells located?
They were on the. They were not hanging down. They were on the
face of the cell.
Yeah, on the face of the
frame.
Yes, thank you. I'm learning terminology. Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah, you're going to learn it. Yeah. So so maybe he determined that those were supersedure cells. So did you knock them down or did you let them go?
They let them go. He said, keep them. Let's see what happens. So we said, okay.
Okay, so now we're seeing what happened. So
Okay.
now the question is whether or not that colony came up queen right. Did they supersede the queen and did it come up queen right? So
Okay.
now is when you have to go back and look and see if you have. It's a little late actually, but you have to see if you have a laying queen in that at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's what you have to do.
So that's one. Now we do see in the bottom chamber, there's a lot of white cap stuff on the top, but there's a lot of empty brown cells at the bottom.
Yeah, so that means that they capped over some honey.
Okay.
There's a honey band on the top of that frame, and there's a lot of empty brown, means there's no brood.
Okay.
So that's
And-
so that you can't tell from that because it's the bottom box, and at this point she might be laying in the top box, but you have
Okay.
to still, you have to, that's the same question.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, you're a little bit behind on the terminology, but you're going to catch up. That white cap stuff is honey. You know, I mean that's
That much I figured.
okay. All right, so we got.
I'm getting there. I'm getting
You're
there.
getting there, right? You're getting there. Hang in there. You got some good questions. Yeah, that's good.
So is there a danger that I lose?
Yeah, there's a danger that you'll lose the hive if it's not queen right at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
It's late in the season to not have a queen right colony.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, but you know, you might be able to save it. You only have one colony, right?
Yes, only one. And we're putting together the second hive because we were trying to get this done, but the strange thing called work that pays the bills came in the way.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you can't work and keep bees. I mean, we all know that.
Bill,
Yeah.
Bill, is it Mukund? Am I saying your name right?
Yes,
Mukund?
ma'am.
Would it be possible, for him to be sure about the queen right by maybe getting eggs somewhere, just a really thorough inspection, and then feeding and trying to overwinter in a nuke if they're small?
Well,
Feeding now, like I'm wondering if that hive is starving, if there's a super on and there's nothing in the super.
well, it might never have gotten to the point where it could make excess honey if it swarmed and didn't come up queen right again. Or if they superseded the queen and it didn't come up queen right again, because
Yeah.
even in a supersedure, you only have an 80% chance that colony, you have a 20% chance that colony not coming up queen right. All of mine came up queen right. There's 100% came up queen right this year, but that's not a usual year. So he might have missed, and he hasn't had a queen since that queen was superseded.
So basically, it sounds like we had a swarm and the queen and a whole bunch of bees left.
Well, swarm and supersedure are two different things.
Okay.
Supersedure is there's lots of bees in the colony still. Like people get fooled by looking in their colony after it's swarmed, because a colony that's had 60,000 bees in it looks like it has a lot of bees when it has 30,000, when half left. So it's hard to tell by looking at the population. You'd have to know what it looked like inside those frames 3 days before it swarmed for you to be able to see the difference in the population. Most new beekeepers can't tell. The signs that the colony has swarmed is that there are open swarm cells, and so on and so forth. And
what is an open swarm cell?
it's one of those peanuts that has the cap taken off of it.
Okay.
So the cap's just flapping, or
Okay.
something like that. But if in fact these were supersedure cells and the colony got superseded, it still had to produce queens that went out and got mated, came back, and
laid
started
it.
to control the colony. But you don't know that.
Okay, so I would say if my next steps would be to ensure that I see some eggs that are still being laid, and if that's happening, then there's a queen that is laying.
And then you
If
got
that's not happening, then
you got to get your mentor out there.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you, everybody.
All right, and thank you guys, the folks that have tried to help also. I appreciate that very much. You don't know how much. I really appreciate your input. So don't hesitate to try to help me answer questions, please. I love that. All right. So what do we got going on in the chat, Jose?
Well, let's
Anything?
get started with that because we have a few things there, including folks wanting to know about your sharing that bloom calendar. That's something that we should put on our website.
Well, I share it on occasionally at meetings.
Yeah.
Like so I share it, yeah. But I could put it on. I think I have to put it on the. I have to. Sarah makes me put it on the bloom calendar as a PDF. Then you can't change it.
Right.
So if somebody wants my bloom calendar, send me an email and I will email it back to you. So you can send me an email. Let me put my email address up there. And then I'll answer you in my personal email this time and I'll send the bloom calendar back. But from now on, but after that, you can send your email back to info@ctbed.gc.com.
And want to know if there's a honey flow on right now.
Wouldn't be able to tell in her area if there is one. She would have to know that by observing what's going on inside of her colony. She can go in and look for nectar and cells. She can look at the bees coming back if they are full of nectar. Best way to do that is to look at them when they're backlit, and you can tell there's nectar coming back in the colony. But generally, if there's lots of foraging going on and you see bees coming back by the droves, generally there's some kind of a flow on, and there is some kind of a flow on almost all the time, whether or not it's minor or major. I would suggest that in my area, it's probably neutral at this point. So what I mean by that is the colony is consuming stores at the same rate that it's being able to forage for them. And they're
Well,
holding.
you live in a magical area, I'll tell you
Well, I
that.
live in a good area for beekeepers. Not magical. It's just good, you know. And I have plenty of clethra around. I have lots of dog bane, you know, and the other sources that are coming through. By the way, bees worked white clover until it died from the drought. You know, so that was out for a long time. You know, so I don't know. Anybody else see any evidence that there might be enough nectar for their colonies at this point?
My bees are taking all the syrup that I give them. That there's nothing in my area.
Well, that's the case though for your area though. That's normal for you this time of year.
That's normal for me. Yep.
What's your area, Jose, so we can know?
I'm in South Glastonbury.
Yeah, that area is tough for bees. You know, so that's
Bill, may I ask a follow-up question? Sorry. Is it too late if there is no queen? Is it too late to get a queen? And
well, that's why I want you to get a hold of your mentor.
Okay.
I want him to guide you with that.
All right.
You know, so yeah, all right. So it's not too late to get a queen.
Okay.
At minimum, I would feed those bees.
You'd feed those bees?
Yeah, at least to stimulate them. So you
Okay.
could have a queen that could have gone on a mating flight, but if they don't have food coming in, she may not be laying.
The drought might have hurt.
Then that's why I'm saying he has to figure out if that colony's queen right first.
Okay.
Yeah, but one way to do it would be to stimulate them with food.
After you know if there's a queen in there, then he can get her to start laying. Like, you know, to put food on it and not know the status of that colony, whether or not it's queen right or not, is not a good diagnostic. So if he had another colony and it had a laying queen in it, of course, we both know, and everybody on here knows with some experience, that he could put a frame with some open brood on that and eggs and see if they made emergency cells. But since he's only got one colony, he can't do that. That's the disadvantage of having only one colony. And if there's a queen in there, you're going to have to look for her. And you and your mentor are going to have to look for her if there's no.
Thank you.
Bill, can I jump in on a question along the same lines? So I have a colony that same thing. I thought it swarmed, but now that you're mentioning that I think maybe she was superseded, but this was a long time ago. This was like at least a month ago, and it's still not queen right. So I put a frame in today because I kept hoping that I did see the supersedure cells, or I thought they were swarm cells, but if they're on the frame, you think they're supersedure?
They can be, but bees will hide swarm cells also in really interesting places. But if it's on the face of the frame, usually it's supersedure.
Okay, so I had a whole bunch of supersedure cells that hatched. And I haven't had eggs in there for a couple weeks. And I kept hoping that, she'd come back from her mating flight, but I think she got eaten by a bird. So I put a frame with eggs and a little brood in there.
Okay.
What's my next step? How long should I wait before I go back in there and check to see if
When did you put that frame in?
today?
All right, so, so if you had a whole lot of experience with this, you could go back in tomorrow and tell, because they'll start to broaden some cells. Like if I was going to do that, I would take my hive tool and I would cleave under some eggs so that I would encourage them to work on those cells to make queen cells there, so emergency cells there. But since you didn't do any of that, you're going to go into that frame 2 days from now. So give them 72 hours and go in there and you will see physical evidence of supersedure cells. If in fact that colony is not queen right, if it's queen right.
They are certainly not queen right. There's not an egg in it. They have a ton of honey in the top deep, but the bottom deep is empty, cranky bees, and tons of drones, lots and lots of drones. I don't know if that's significant or not, but.
What size are they?
What size drones? They're drone size.
Are they, well, are they full size?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not too concerned about that. But if they were small drones, I'd be a little bit more concerned about that. Because, you may have been queenless long enough counting over the length. In that case, you get small drones.
No, these are very big, and a bee friend of mine was saying, I'm gonna have a hard time finding a queen because there's all these drones everywhere. They're the same size, they're big. But
Well,
yes, I understand.
You got the right test at this point. So you got to take it one. So you're doing the right thing. You'll know if emergency cells, and get going from there. You can start from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
Lauren has been, I've got other things in the chat, but Lauren's been very patient with her hand up. So Lauren, please go ahead.
Go ahead, Lauren.
You're muted, Lauren.
I am never patient, so thank you for saying that, Jose. This is not a timely question, I know, but this year I've been just informally raising my own queens in nukes and putting them in, and I just wanted, in preparation for next year, to know if there's like a piece of equipment that I could be getting, or like anything smaller than a nuke to try to raise my own queens. I know it's not timely. Well, what would that equipment be?
Well, I'll walk you through the whole thing next year, because well, what we're going to do is we're going to start a bee yard, a queen rearing bee yard in our own bee yard. So we're going to take you through all of those things. There's many little ways for you to raise queens, and this informal way that you're raising them is really a good way to raise them, because you're ending up with quality queens that you are raising from brood stock, I would imagine, that performed well enough for you to say, I want to replicate that. So what you're doing is really, did you get some queens mated? Did you get some queens mated?
Yes, I sure did. Yep.
Okay,
and they look good.
Yeah. So
That one that I thought was stubby that I mentioned last month, she just needed a little more time. I actually just killed a queen 2 days ago in an aggressive hive. They were awful. So I pinched her and I put that one I raised. She's nice, big, she had good brood pattern for being, in a little nuke. So yeah, I think it went well. And I have another.
Yeah. Yeah, and a queen that's confined to a little nuke doesn't get an opportunity to lay as many eggs as she can in the big colonies. So normally her eggs are larger when she first starts laying, and she'll just go to town because she can spend more time in a nuke laying eggs, so they get bigger. The eggs get bigger, and then it's an interesting phenomenon, and we can tell why by eggs. Queens that are restricted from doing a lot of laying will lay longer in a bigger hive and start to produce eggs that are smaller but more of them.
Oh,
So you
good.
should be great.
Well, I will look for that when I check in a few days to see if she's been accepted.
Yeah. So so it's a real success, don't you think?
I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I have to see how it looks. She's just in now, just today. Like, I'm still sweaty. It just happened. So I'll see
Okay.
what a success it is. And then I do have one more that I'm gonna put in. I had purchased a package, and I want to get rid of that queen and overwinter with one that I raised. So that's the next one.
Here you go. That's a good idea.
All right, so there's no equipment I can I have to wait till spring. That's the message.
No,
here.
you don't have to wait till spring, but you mean you want to buy equipment?
I want to know if there's something smaller, like feel like I've heard people talk about 2-frame nukes. I just have 5-frame.
So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff to buy. Queen castles, all kinds of things you can do. Raising queens in a nuke is not a bad idea.
Okay.
Oh,
all right. Well, so then maybe I'll just keep it.
So we'll go through those scenarios next spring.
Thank you very much.
Raising
Hey,
queens.
what I would offer up, if you like building, is look up D-Coats nuke and size it down for a 2-frame nuke. That's what I've done myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean,
I never wanted woodworking skills as much as I do now that I'm a beekeeper.
Lauren wants them now.
It's good. Those of you who can woodwork, good on you.
Yeah, you can put follower boards in 5-frame nukes also on. So you can buy them you can buy follower boards for Langstreth equipment, and it just and you can double them up. You can put 2, one on each side, and have 3-frame nuke. So
Thank you very much.
You do it that way.
Bill, can I ask one question? It has to do with the original question that I think her name was Melissa was talking about. I have 2 deeps, and I had my super on top with the queen excluder. I think I talked to you about this last time, and you had suggested moving some things around so there's room for them to go up. And I did, and I got some great honey in there. So thank you very much for that. But I also took the queen excluder off. I have 5 hives, so I took it off of 1. And now there's brood in there as well too. So there's some honey and some brood in there. So what should I do with that? Like coming into winter, not now, obviously, but what would you suggest on that?
So wait, let me back up again and go over your honey super.
The honey super is just on top of the regular 2 deeps.
And that's fine. That's fine. There's no brood in the honey super.
No, that's what has some brood in it.
Did the queen sneak through your excluder?
No, I took it off because I just was getting frustrated because they weren't going up there. So I took it off, and then the bees went up and they started working it. And, but the queen came up as well too. It's a very big hive, and it did swarm during the year, and it made its own queen, and, it was all queen right again from a second queen.
Nice one.
But yeah, but actually this happened to 2 of my hives. They swarmed, and they had gotten so big because I had 5 and I just didn't have any more equipment. So I kind of let them swarm. And they did make up new queens, and they're both great. They're full, but I guess my question is, what should I do with the honey super now? I did take.
All right, you got a couple options. You can go up into that honey super and find, get the queen out of there.
Okay.
So you got to get the queen out of there. So you're going to have
Sure.
to, yeah, you got to
Sure.
figure out where she is
Yes.
and get her down below the excluder. You have time to do this, and then that brood will emerge, and they're likely to backfill that with honey.
Okay. Yes, that's a great idea.
Okay, so that's one thing.
That's a great idea.
Or just let the brood emerge, and then it'll be fine. You know, even
No,
if you
I will.
don't- if they don't backfill with honey, you'll have enough honey you can harvest from that super.
Sure.
And I'm assuming that below them, Karen, is plenty of honey in the deeps.
Well, I haven't been in there for a little while, but if I do, when I do take off the honey, I will look underneath, of course. And so I had two hives that had full honey supers, and I took them off, and those had queen excluders. So I'm a real beekeeper now, Bill. I
there
actually
you
did
go.
it with the queen.
Wow.
And so
yeah,
I know. And so those hives, there was not very much honey. So I started feeding just this afternoon in those two.
yeah. Okay, so all right, so that's a great thing to do at this point, because you're in Jose's situation at this point.
Yes. And
You
I'm
know,
not too far from Glastonbury. So
Okay, so they're chewing back their stores, and that's a good thing to feed them at this point.
Karen, what some beekeepers do, just to encourage the bees to go up there, they will do what you did. They'll put that super above their brood boxes without the queen excluder, but do that for only a couple of weeks. And that during those 2 weeks, the bees will go up there and they'll begin treating that like a brood box. But then after 2 weeks, in just 2 weeks, put the queen back down in the lower two brood boxes, put your queen excluder on, and whatever brood is up there in the super will just emerge. But it won't be, a full-blown brood box, because she'll only have been laying there for a little while.
yes, and that was suggested. I don't know if it was you that suggested it a while in many, many bee talks earlier. And I thought that's a great idea. And I missed that. This is what I tried to do. I tried to watch it, and it got away from me, and I didn't check it quick enough, and the brood was up there. Like 1 week it was not, and I was all psyched they were building up there, and then it was. So but that's a great idea of just moving the queen down. I don't know why I didn't think about that. And then putting the queen excluder on. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a possibility, starting off.
Thank you, Jose.
Yeah, so
Sorry, Bill.
so starting off the way Jose suggested is another way to do it. I have another way also, but you can just leave that the way it is right now, so you can run that colony that way. You don't have to change anything. Like, do you need that honey, or you just want it? Do you want?
Bill, I'm sorry.
Is there something you want out of that frame that has that super that has brood in it?
Well, no, but I wasn't sure,
You can leave it just like that.
So just leave it, and then they'll just all emerge, and come the fall, I just take it off.
Or leave it for them to overwinter with.
So you
should have three brood boxes going into the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead. You have to make sure that later on in October you figure that out.
Okay.
Because what could happen is, if you leave it the way it is right now, one or two things could happen. A lot of things can happen, not just one thing, but
sure.
That brood will emerge, and then they'll backfill that with nectar on the fall flow. If goldenrod comes and knotwood comes in, the queen won't continue to lay up there.
Sure.
So they'll drive the queen down and fill that super up with honey. So that could happen on its own, right? Or you can do what we've suggested, move the queen down under a queen excluder and manage the process, right? Or you can let it go natural and see what happens.
Maybe I'll do one with one and one with the other. I like that idea.
Well, you don't have two situations like that. I thought you only had.
I
one.
have I have two boxes just like that. That they both swarmed, and then, you know, they were full, and I put the queen excluders on, nothing happened. And so I pulled it off and just tried to do what Jose was saying, you know, wait the few weeks. They worked it all out, and it was going great, and I just missed it. I don't know, I didn't get in on time. That was my fault. And so I do have two full brood boxes, or two, you know, deeps, and then the no queen excluders and the supers and honey and brood in the both of them.
Oh, cool. So you're not trying to make $1 million out of the, you know, your bee business, and you're not making artisanal honey. You know,
No, I'm not.
Anything like
I'm
that.
not.
You can. I encourage you to try it either both ways. You know, like and see what happens. Follow the biology around.
I will. I pulled all my supers, and I actually went and borrowed one of the spinners this year because there were so many, and I'm going to try that. And I will take a few more frames of honey out of there before I, you know, because there are several frames of just honey without the brood. But you think that's okay too?
Well, that's the way they do it in other countries. So in other words, yeah, you don't have to harvest the whole super. You can pull frames out of the side. They do that. That's exactly how they harvest honey in Thailand, by the way. They don't ever.
Really?
They never. There's always brood in the boxes that they harvest from. They'll take 2 or 3 frames at a time, harvest them, and then put them back wet. Now, the only thing is with Western honeybees, the ones we're dealing with, is they're likely to have put up those stores thinking that those are going to be available for them for the winter.
That's what, yeah.
So you have to know what's going on in both of your deeps down below. Because if they are actually storing all the honey they have up in that super, then you take it out.
Yes.
You know, yeah, you got a problem.
Right. That's what happened with the other one. That's what happened with the other two. That's why I started feeding. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I don't want to take up any more time. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Jose.
You're welcome. Before we move on, then I just want to say very quickly, picking up on what Karen just said, we do have 5 extractors that are available to beekeepers, and they're free of charge. We just require a small deposit and for you to bring them back clean. But we've got one in Windsor Locks, one in Eastford, one in Litchfield, Southington, and Killingworth. And if you go to our website, you'll see the contact information there for each one. So if you're in need of one, please take advantage of our resources.
Yeah, because we don't charge anything for that, as Jose said. And you can use one of our extractors. And actually it comes with a honey bucket too, doesn't it?
It comes with everything, you know, it came with everything.
Oh, did you use one of ours? Did you get one of ours?
No, I haven't used it yet. I'm actually on my porch and it's ready to go.
It's CBA. You got it.
There it is, right there. I have it covered because I've already cleaned it and deconned it. And here's my goods to go. But yes, I like the key thing there about cleaning it because it was kind of in the box. I took the whole box out and cleaned it out all because I'm like a neat freak, but I cleaned it all out for him but the spinner was great. It was all cleaned and ready to go.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I have the one from Eastford, so you'll have to wait a little bit if you're thinking.
All right. So there's our program in action, Jose. So
there you go. That's right.
We also have another extractor that has a motor on it and also have a bottling tank. And next year, we're going to have a gala event. Coronavirus will be in our past. And we will have a live event where we'll have people bring their frames and we'll hot knife them on the premise. We'll put them in our extractor and then we'll all get together and see each other live. And
it'll be a good learning process because it's one thing to hear about how to extract it. It's another to actually see it firsthand. So
do that next.
We're running kind of short on times and we don't want to shortchange people with questions. So Kelly, do you want to jump in? You're muted. Yeah.
Hi there. Yes, this was the first year that I could put supers on my hives and they were not drying out the supers evenly. So I did get a little bit of honey in one of my hives, but they drew out the comb so big, they didn't draw out the two frames evenly to meet in the middle. They drew out the one comb way far so that when you lift it, it can't even lift out straight.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for how to get them to behave themselves a little better?
Yeah, you need to get out there and discuss this issue with them. I mean, this is not something you can let go. I mean, it's if you don't take the time to like instruct that, then to lay one of the bee books on top of the colony, they got to get together with this. They just do what they want to do. I mean, so in that case, for some reason, the biology of some bees, they just do it. And when they should be doing an interesting job on the supers, an easy job to draw out comb in a super, right? I mean, you're not really asking them to do much work, but they will sometimes do that. Now, I'd have to ask you a couple questions that you might even not remember the answer to. Did you have the shoulders of all of the frames together tight in that box?
Yes, they were. And a friend of mine had suggested that maybe they're plastic frames. Somebody had said that maybe they were not, they didn't have enough wax on them.
Well, I mean, that's maybe, but lots of folks buy and use waxless frames on purpose because they don't, and they work fine. And because they don't want our wax stock on their frames, because our wax stock has pesticides in it, and they coat frames from the plastic frame from the manufacturers. They use our domestic wax for that, and that has a residue component to it. So some people say, I don't want that in my honey supers, so don't give me waxless frames. And bees draw them out beautifully. Sometimes they don't draw them out beautifully. So in your case, you harvest from the fat frame, and did they draw some like little tiny cells on the frame adjacent to it? Nothing.
They just, it's the one frame in the center was completely drawn out, like basically double wide, and on either side of that there was just nothing.
How about the
and
rest
then one over, they had started drawing out, but they didn't really have much
All right,
in
so
it.
okay, so you didn't really get much drawn out on that. So
No.
so I don't know, you can do whatever you want with that. You can harvest that frame if you want. And
Okay.
Once you do harvest that frame, you're going to plane it down so it's even again, assuming that they built the comb on the foundation. There might be a gap between the foundation and the comb. That's another thing, another little trick bees pull on us.
I can check. From what I could see, it is on the foundation, but I will definitely check that.
So you didn't make much honey in there, and so
No.
do what you want with it.
Okay.
So sorry, go ahead.
So that's, now you got a way to extract it?
I have a friend that has an extractor,
Okay.
so I could try, but it's just,
You're
the
gonna
one
spin
frame.
one frame, you're not gonna get much out of that.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Cool.
So some folks are asking about Joe Pye weed, boneset, and chicory. Are those good for the bees?
Yeah. Chicory is really interesting because it will bloom now until forever, and bees will work chicory constantly. I should have put that on the bloom calendar. There's another one I got to put on there. But chicory, well, I do have it on my bloom calendar, but it's out much earlier. Chicory comes out in July. All over the place, you'll see it on the side of the road, a little purple flower, bluish purple flower, and you'll see a single bee on every one of them. If it's not a bumblebee, it's usually a honeybee, and really interesting. Joe Pye weed is another one. Michael Lund introduced me to that plant, I don't know, 10 years ago, and said, this is a plant where bees get black pollen from them. And I don't know if they do or not, Michael. What would you say about Joe Pye weed? I don't see my bees work it.
I I actually thought the black pollen came from poppies.
Well, maybe it does, but
So, and I want to
Joe
say.
Pye
it's
weed has
more-
a black something in it too. If you look inside the flower, it looks black somehow.
Yeah, I never figured out where it came from. All I know is some years, almost every bee will be coming in the beehive with black pollen.
Yeah, so they get black pollen, who knows what it is? Maybe it's tar, who knows? But
Oh, it could be.
yeah, it could be, because they pick up a lot of stuff they're not supposed to pick up. But Joe Pye weed, I would say Joe Pye weed, if your bees are working, and take a picture. I mean, I don't see my bees working. And I do see bumblebees on it, hornets, other kinds of pollinators, but I don't see honeybees on mine anywhere around. But I'm sure they can work it, but I don't see if they're doing it.
If there are enough stores to overwinter, would next week be a good time to harvest, or should we wait till September?
Well, so I would encourage everyone to try to take a summer harvest, like sometime at the end of July, so about 2 weeks ago, and then leave the rest of it for bees. Whatever they collect from then on gives you an opportunity to assess your colony's mite health, and then it gives the colony a chance to store up whatever it can out of knotweed and goldenrod, or you can feed at that point to make sure you have plenty of stores going in, because we're getting late. I mean, it doesn't seem like it. We just went through, what, I don't know how many days of 80-degree weather. I can't remember how many, 44 or something in a row. So it seems like it's the middle of the summer. Actually, we're getting toward the end of the bee season at this point, and it's a good time to try to prepare your colonies this month and next month for overwintering. So I don't like to leave and take a harvest in September, although I used to, right? So I had a pretty reliable 2-flow season. One nice light honey in the summer that I took off right after the summer flow. Whenever it ended, I took it off. Or whenever supers were built, I took them off. And then I would put the stickies back on, and I'd leave them back on and let them fill again the second time on knotweed and goldenrod and make a second harvest. And I would take that off at the end of, sometime when they filled, the end of August or in September sometime. But that cuts it real close to getting enough stores in that colony if they need it. Remember, if you're harvesting late in the season, the bees are depending on that to overwinter. And if you take it, you're going to have to make sure you know what you're doing at that point and get enough syrup into them, a couple gallons of syrup into them, maybe more than a couple gallons, so that you can make sure that they're fed well enough so you don't starve them out because you've taken their resources. So I'm an advocate.
So Bill, can you hear me?
I can, but let me just finish. I'm an advocate of just taking, one harvest at this point. But you can take. Go
Hi.
ahead. Yes.
So this is Debbie. My husband's out on the deck.
Is he drinking a beer or something? What's he out there doing?
No, he's probably drinking wine. Well, he's got these allergies, now, so he's a little standoffish, but he's still coming in and out.
Okay.
But so I was one who asked that question. My husband asked me to do that. We have a lot of honey in the supers. And we did harvest in July. And I know that you're not a big fan of, because I've been listening to you for a while now. You're not a big fan of harvesting towards late summer, but it's been so hot that we haven't gone in there for the last couple of weeks now.
I know. Well, you did harvest in July already, right?
We did. Yes.
And now what are you saying? You have another crop?
We have another crop, yeah. That supers are filled with honey. Apparently the deeps are as well.
Well, then, then you're okay to take that honey and extract it, assuming that you know for a fact that the deeps are full.
Even if the deeps aren't full, and we will try to, determine that.
Yeah,
but we will feed them.
Now make sure that when you get in there, you don't see that they're starting to eat back those So the telltale indication that your colonies are not in balance like mine are, where they're taking as much, for their metabolism as they find in the field, so they're sort of equal. My honey stores aren't moving anywhere. Make sure the telltale sign of that is there's empty cells a ring of empty cells in the super, like a crown of them, where there was obvious honey at one point. So you can get an idea that they're moving. If there's a lot of bees in the super and they're moving honey out of it, they're using it, and they're in a dearth. So if you then go ahead and extract whatever honey it is in that super that they were depending on, you've taken all their honey. You got to feed them at that point. See, that's the thing with late harvests. Late harvests are, did the bees say, wow, we have this super up here. It has drawn comb. Let's put all of our honey stores for the winter up there. And the brood box is not where they were storing honey. So you got to figure that out.
So basically we could take the honey and then start feeding them.
You could take the honey and start feeding them, yes.
But you got to watch out for.
You just have to make sure you don't starve them right now. Take the honey, and then taking the honey at this point and not feeding them would probably be a mistake, unless there's like 7 frames of full honey in that top box. Like in the new bee yard that we established, I didn't put any honey supers on, and we went with double deeps, and every colony in there put up 7 or 8 full frames of honey in their deep. So that's colony. You don't have to worry about, if you're not trying to make honey with the colony that did that already in June, right? You don't have to worry about that colony all year, because then if you're just for the love of the bees, keeping bees, and don't care about taking any honey from them, and they built, 7 or 8 frames of honey by the end of June, it wouldn't matter what happened to them for the rest of the season. They're likely to run into some kind of a flow later on in the year, so you can let them eat back their stores all through any dearth. That's how bees survive naturally. Nobody's taking their honey, so they don't. Bees in the natural habitat don't die in the dearth, because they have already stored up enough honey earlier in the year. Now, if they run into a year where they haven't been able to store honey, and they run into a dearth, then they do die. But for the most part, in the natural cycle of things, bees don't have a problem managing their stores. They do a great job of it. But we come along and take honey away from them.
Yeah, the last time we looked in there, there was a lot of honey, and we haven't been in for the last couple of weeks because of the heat wave.
Yeah, no, I know nobody would do that.
So we would like to take that honey and start feeding them, probably.
Well, you got it. Yeah. Well, so then it's the responsible thing to do would be to feed them.
All right. And now, or should we wait till September?
No, you could kill them in a week. See, here's the thing, you can starve a big, strong colony in days. So no, so maybe I'm not saying it right. So you have to get into that deep box and figure out how much honey's in it. If you have 6 or 7 frames of honey in that deep box, then you don't have to feed. All right. But if that deep below that super is light with honey, and you wait 3 weeks to feed, you can kill them, because you took away all the honey that they were depending on to live. Does it make that sense? Does that make sense?
I understand. But I guess the question is, do we take the honey now, or do we wait till September, basically?
You can take the honey now, or you can wait till September. You can do either one. But the more important part of this conversation between us right now is that you understand the condition of the deep boxes. So I don't know if I've made myself clear.
I understand.
Yeah, you got to make sure you understand. Yeah, you can do it either way, but you got to make sure that deep has got honey in it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yep.
Taylor asks if there's any chance that this Saturday's event will be filmed, and yes, it will. We film it, we edit it, and we post it for folks to watch it. So if you can
But
come
it's-
out, that's an
yeah.
option.
Yeah, that's an option, but it's, I'm sorry, but it's not a good one. But we try to do it. It just doesn't come out as, if you attend a bee yard event, you'll see the difference. I mean, you can, you get all of the nuances of what's going on in the colony, and and it's much better to come out live. So Doug, what's your question here? Are you going to be at the workshop, Doug? This Saturday, or did you lose? His mic's not working. Okay. In the workshop this weekend, would you talk about the need to reconfigure removing undrawn frames, preparing hives so I guess they don't overwinter with dead space, like a double deep that the bees worked half of each box, leaving one side fun. Well, I mean, if we could, we'll try to figure out when we look at hives Saturday, whether or not, they're configured correctly to overwinter, and that will be part of it, Doug. Yep. All right. So what do you say, Jose?
Well, we've got just one more question, and I think you could answer it quickly. Lisa wants to know, she put a super on the top deep to prevent the swarm. It's still there. Is it necessary to swap them back and take the super off for the winter, or can it stay this way for the winter?
I'm not sure I understand that question. So
The super's under the top deep.
oh, she nadered. That's called nadering.
Yeah.
Right,
So it's super, it's a deep, a super, and then a deep.
It's a deep, a super, and a deep. And what's your question, Lisa? You want to leave that?
Well, I just don't know if it's necessary to have to, at some point swap that back and then let them move down and take that super off, or can it just stay that way?
Is anything in that super?
I haven't looked.
All right, that's the answer to the question, though.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know there's brood in that top deep. They're laying in the top deep.
Yeah.
I had a ton of brood there a week ago.
Well, that's good. But then, so the super below it, you just got to look at what's going on in there, Lisa. See what's in that that medium. It's a medium.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And see if they've got stores in it, or if there's brood in it. I mean, it could be the extension of the brood from the top box, and they can build between the wood.
Mhm.
And end up with some brood down in that box. In that case, you have to make a decision about that. If that was the case, and I wanted to get back down to 2 deeps, I would take that super brood or not, and I'd put it above a queen excluder on the top box. So I'd have 2 deeps, queen excluder, and then the medium.
Okay.
If there's brood in it,
right.
And then let that brood emerge, and then you can deal with that super separately. You could take it off or whatever.
So if there's brood in it, I want to move it back up and put a queen.
Yeah, put a
excluder
queen
on.
excluder on it. Make sure the queen's not in it.
Right. Okay.
All right. So, and then, move her down to down.
Is
below.
it fatal if I leave it on because I can't find the queen? Because I'm horrible at finding queens.
No, it's just that it's just a configuration that we normally don't end up with.
I know. It's just, that's why I'm wondering, because I've never done this before. And
yeah, I mean, so I think it's
Well,
more
she could always just put the queen excluder and put that on top of it and check for eggs to see if the queen is up there. If the queen is not there, then that's her answer.
Yeah, you can do it that way, Lisa. The way that Jose is suggesting, just move it up over top of a queen excluder and see if there's eggs there. But it's only a medium. You should be able to find. Don't tell me you can't find a queen in a medium. I'm not going to accept that answer.
I know. Well, I'm bad. Well, I've had a lot of swarms this year. So usually what I'm looking for is these little tiny queens that aren't like fully grown, and I can't find those kind of queens. I can find a fully grown one.
Yeah, I think Jose's suggestion's better than the one, that, or it's the same as the one I made, I guess, but
So just put it up there with
find it.
if I end up finding eggs.
Yeah, you can find eggs, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, but you've got to wait like 4 days or 5 days. I'd wait 5 days just to make sure that every egg that was in that, if there were eggs in that medium, then that they were all have developed into larvae at that point, so that you're not, so that day 5, if you see an egg in day 5, there's a queen up there laying.
Right, right. Okay. Okay. All right, thanks.
Cool. Well, listen, I want to thank you guys all for coming.